spirituality does not make us immune to problems. What it makes us do is provide the courage to face them and also to look at them differently, look at them as opportunities for spiritual growth.
On one hand, there is the medical, scientific paradigm that looks for proofs. Everything has to be physical. On the other hand, integrating it with spirituality, yoga, which values the subjective inner experience, and then bringing the two together in the field of health. What was that process like?
We have looked upon science and spirituality both as two different ways of seeking the truth. And science has a limited domain, a limited approach. And therefore, what it will discover will be true, but it will be only a part of the truth. Whereas spirituality has a much wider dimension, and therefore only that can give us the total truth. So a part of the truth can fit into the total truth, and therefore really there has been no contradiction.
People are now becoming very interested in health, nutrition, lifestyle.
There's also a temptation to look for shortcuts. There are no shortcuts, neither to good health nor to self-realization.
Loneliness and depression, constant overthinking, anxiety, and social media addiction. How can yogic wisdom support with people who are facing these serious challenges?
The soul has no desires, it has no anger, it has no jealousy. And therefore, the soul is always at peace. So the mind has to be anchored to the soul. Once you enter there, then spirituality is there. So you can't actually practice mind-body medicine without bringing spirituality in.
Today, we will be in conversation with somebody who has lived a lifetime of service and contribution. He's made a distinguished and notable contribution in the field of nutrition, yoga, and spirituality. Retired as the head of physiology from AIIMS, we will be in conversation with Dr. Ramesh Bijlani, who's today the founder of the Yes Spirituality platform. He's a seeker, he's a sadhak, but not just that, somebody who's such a Karma Yogi at the age of 78, also so much full of vitality to give, to contribute, to serve, to build, to really contribute towards a divine creation on earth. We will be exploring questions ranging from modern day problems of loneliness, depression, of information overload when it comes to nutrition and food, to his own deeper spiritual journey. This is a podcast which is full of deep lived wisdom that every sincere seeker will benefit from. I really urge you to listen to this entire podcast with your undivided attention. And with that, we leap right in.
Thank you for joining us, Bijlani ji. I'd like to begin with asking your journey of how did you come to Sri Aurobindo and the mother? And were there some indicators as a child that were already opening you to spirituality? And even as, you were opening to spirituality, why Sri Aurobindo and the mother? Why integral yoga? One could have gone the traditional route of yoga, but something in you chose integral yoga. Why that? Then I have a whole lot of questions because you are somebody from a medical science background and you're somebody who's attempted to integrate spirituality, yoga with science and medicine, and not somebody, as you came to yoga, as you came to spirituality, left that and started something else. You brought the two together in your journey of life. So we'll come to explore that, but first I'd like to listen to your journey from your childhood to when you grew up. When was it that, that spiritual awakening began, and why integral yoga? Why Sri Aurobindo and the mother?
Well, these are things which one can understand better only in retrospect. And if I look back, yes, as a child, I did stand out as the odd one out, rather silent and shy, and took more than the more interest than an average child would in lessons which were about the founders of religions and so on. One of the important turning points, I think, in my life was that I got from my uncle a small little booklet published by Sri Ramakrishna Mission, Thus Spake the Buddha. And then, followed a few more in quick succession. And I found them very appealing and something, which I felt that can be used as guides in life. And that remained the approach for a very long time. So as I grew older, I started reading other books on religion and spirituality, and I started spending a few minutes, I should say, not a few hours, but at least 15, 20 minutes every morning on reading a couple of pages from some book on religion or spirituality. And I kept moving from one book to the other, primarily because I thought they'll be all saying some nice things. So for the sake of variety, why go on repeating the same book in a mechanical way day after day? Why not pick up something different? So that process went on for a long time. And the principal use that I saw in doing that was that I can live an ethically sound life. But when it came to places of worship or places like the ashram, I in fact had an aversion to them. I did not want to go there. I thought reading all these things and bringing it into my life was enough. Because these places are associated with rituals and ceremonies and hypocrisy and so on. So I didn't want to go there. But then, in 1992, at age 45, I was going through a difficult phase in life. And at what only looks like a coincidence, early in the morning on a Sunday, I picked up a newspaper, the Sunday newspaper, and those days the newspapers had the daily events column. So in that column, it said, Satsang, 10 o'clock in the morning, Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi branch. So I thought, let me go there. I may get some peace of mind. Because when you're going through a difficult phase and you find that all that you've read so far has proved completely useless, and in spite of that, you are lost and all that has been inadequate, all that preparation in the past has been inadequate. So your resistance breaks down. So that's how I went there, and I was in for a surprise. The place was neat and clean, so very punctual. Said 10 o'clock, music started on the dot at 10 in the morning. There were no big crowds. There was no hypocrisy. It was not religion that was being talked about. It was spirituality. And then I discovered that the satsang was not only that Sunday, it was every Sunday. So I started going almost every Sunday. And then I started reading Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. And in retrospect, I feel that I went there at age 45, although I had been at AIIMS for 27 years by then. I entered AIIMS as an undergraduate student in 1965. And as I told you, I was not really blind to matters religious and spiritual, but still it took me 27 years to go to the ashram. And in retrospect, I think it is because if I had gone very early, one or two of the things could have happened, and maybe both. One, I wouldn't have understood Sri Aurobindo. And secondly, I might have understood him a bit vaguely and decided that, well, if I have to live a spiritual life, why study medicine? I might have left the medical course in the middle. That also could have happened. But the Mother wanted me to have adequate preparation while I was there in AIIMS, do some work there, which in retrospect looks like at least done to some extent in the spirit of karma yoga. And then when the preparation was complete, then at the right point, that eureka moment came, and I said, yes, this is it. This is what suits me the best.
What about, since you mentioned that you were reading a number of religious, spiritual books, and for the sake of variety, you were reading a lot of them, and then, years later coming to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, what distinguished Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, or what stood out about Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, which made you feel like this is it? that made you feel that this is the paths that I want to walk on? What about them really moved you, touched you?
I found that there's no dogma, there's no prescribed path. A lot of freedom is available for the person to carve out his or her own path. And that's what I found the most appealing part in Sri Aurobindo.
And now I'd like to listen a little bit about your journey of integrating. On one hand, there is the medical, scientific paradigm that looks for proofs. Everything has to be physical, and there has to be a physical experiment and proof. On the other hand, integrating it with spirituality, yoga, which values the subjective inner experience, and then bringing the two together in the field of health. What was that process like? When you came to Sri Aurobindo and the mother, you still continued working at AIIMS for a very long period of time. Did you feel some contradictions? Did you attempt to reconcile some of those contradictions? And then eventually you founded the Integral Health Clinic. What is the philosophy? What is the vision, mission behind that made you found a place like that brings medical science together with the yogic psychology?
And you started with how it could integrate science with spirituality. It's a very common question. And I think it's rooted in the fact that Europe went through this science-religion conflict at the junction of the Dark Ages and the European Renaissance. And therefore, we feel that as if this is a natural thing to happen. But in fact, in India, that has never been a problem. Because Sri Aurobindo says in his Uttarpada speech that this is one religious tradition in which many of the scientific discoveries were not only accepted but even anticipated. So we never had that type of a conflict. We have looked upon science and spirituality both as two different ways of seeking the truth. And science has a limited domain, a limited approach, and therefore what it will discover will be true, but it will be only a part of the truth. Whereas spirituality has a much wider dimension, and therefore only that can give us the total truth. So a part of the truth can fit into the total truth, and therefore really there has been no contradiction. And when it comes to a person who has studied life sciences, in fact it would be, it's a paradox, or I should say it's extremely surprising that people don't realize it, because if you look at the way the living systems have been constructed, it looks like the work of a superpower, a power that is supremely intelligent beyond any human imagination, beyond human capacity. And so for example, if you look at the process of life itself, you find that it's the result of something which is much more complex than an orchestra. So many cells functioning and getting conditions which are conducive for them to continue functioning as a result of so many neurotransmitters being released in the nervous system, so many hormones being released by the endocrine system, and all these released in just the right amount, at the right time, at the right place, and being effective to the extent required by the change in the sensitivity to these chemicals in the cells, and depending upon the extent to which a chemical is allowed entry into the cell, it engineering some chemical reactions, hastening them or slowing them down, or affecting the genetic expression in the cell, the way it expresses in forming proteins. Now, we understand only a part of it. And what is it that is doing all this? Very simple codes. The electrical charge, the positive and the negative charge, like charges repelling each other, unlike charges attracting each other. So this provides one explanation why something may move in one direction or the other. The other more complex part is the shape of the molecules. These molecules have a shape, and they can fit in it like a lock and key, and those which fit in like a lock and key can interact and further stimulate a reaction. not only they can stimulate a reaction, they can also fit in such a way as to block a reaction. So you may have both types of chemicals available, some which will block the reaction by fitting like a lock and key, and some which will stimulate it. Now, what out of the two will happen may sometimes depend upon which is released in a larger amount and overwhelm the other type. And then when the switch is required, one type goes down, the other type goes up, or the receptors in the cell, they are upregulated or downregulated. Now, we understand part of these things, and then we explain them, and this happens, and then this happens, and this happens because of this, and this happens this way. But then just imagine the one who designed it all. We are only describing what is happening. We don't get into how it happens. And in fact, it's only because we associate intelligence with, say, solving a complex mathematical problem or composing a beautiful poem. In fact, each of these molecules, which is moving in a certain direction where it is required and accomplishing something, seems to have infinite intelligence packed into it. Without that, it would not be able to perhaps move in the right direction, reach the right place, and perform the right type of action. And at what level is this shape, which we are talking about, the complementarity of shape? At a level where you can't even see it under the microscope. So such tiny molecules having a shape which is able to accomplish all this. It is sort of microengineering at a level which is mind-boggling. So anyone who understands these life processes, the way modern science, to the extent modern science has explored, and even that is not all, cannot but to wonder and develop a great reverence for the one who designed it all. So believing in a superpower, which is what spirituality is about. I mean, spirituality basically assumes that the world is not an accident. It is the result of an intelligent design, and the intelligent designer has always been there and will always be there. And not only that, it has an all-pervasive presence in its creation, which it has become. So to believe all this, in fact, follows more or less automatically from these observations. And this science-religion conflict, which was there for some time in the West, was an aberration. But the best of scientists, even in those countries, were deeply spiritual people, many of them at least. Newton was spiritual, and so was the one who, we have two types of mechanics, Newtonian mechanics and mechanics which came from Einstein onwards. Einstein was a deeply spiritual man, and so was Newton. And then among the more recent neurophysiologists are John Eccles and the physicists like Fritjof de Capra and many others who followed him. I mean, they've all been deeply spiritual people.
And even I really love the way you described molecules and attraction and repulsion. It almost felt like how it works amongst human beings, that sometimes there are vital likes and dislikes, and that causes either harmony or it causes disharmony. And similarly in the body also, that when everything is functioning well, that there is harmony in the body, or illness becomes like a disharmony in the body of sort. If you can narrate one or two instances where you really saw that, how Mother speaks about, ultimately it's the faith that cures. Ultimately, one has to bring peace in the cells of the body. And she says that's more important than anything else. The medicine can even be a placebo. It doesn't matter. One or two instances where it was absolutely magical for you to witness the power of faith, or witness the power of peace and quietude in the process of healing.
These are now well-documented things. It was only for a brief period in the beginning of the 20th century that the mind-body relationship went into an eclipse. That's because of spectacular developments like the discovery of antibiotics and vitamins and so on, which wiped out the major killers of mankind till then, like infectious disease and nutritional deficiencies. But very soon, while these diseases were conquered, their place was taken by another set of diseases, the lifestyle diseases, and they did not lend themselves to such mathematical solutions. That is, absence of something in the body, or the entry into the body of something harmful, and you provide the antagonist for the harmful thing, or you replace the deficiency and the disease is cured. They did not lend themselves to this type of an approach. And it was found that the roots were in the lifestyle as a whole, and of that, the mental stress was a major accompaniment. In fact, we woke up in modern medicine to the mind-body relationship in the 1960s, and one of the landmarks was in the realization by a person who was not a doctor, Norman Cousins, who came down with ankylosing spondylitis after going through a stressful period. And he asked one simple question which the doctors had forgotten to ask because we had forgotten the mind-body relationship. He asked that if stress could give rise to this disease that I have, will happiness be able to cure it? And he literally cured himself with a combination of laughter and vitamin C.
Wow.
And went on to write a book, The Anatomy of an Illness. And that made waves, and eventually he went on to be one of the pioneers in mind-body medicine. So, but then when we see that the mind affects the body, and therefore when we are not at peace, when we are under stress for a long period, we come down with a disease, and then fortunately it's a two-way street. When relaxation and happiness can start reversing these diseases, one may say that, well, simple, okay, so we can decide to be happy from tomorrow, I'll not worry about anything. But that doesn't work. That's what we don't realize. Because what happens is that the mind has two aspects, feeling and thinking. Feeling, the vital. Now that by very nature is volatile. And thinking by very nature is vacillating. So how can something which is by its very nature volatile and vacillating be at peace? And therefore, the mind needs an anchor. And the anchor is the soul. Because the soul is all the time at peace. The soul has no desires, it has no anger, it has no jealousy. And therefore, the soul is always at peace. So the mind has to be anchored to the soul. And once you, what in other words means is that you have to let the surface instruments, the vital and the mental, work as far as possible in light of the soul. Once you enter there, then spirituality is there. So you can't actually practice mind-body medicine without bringing spirituality in. And that's why you find that the pioneers in mind-body medicine did that. They didn't look at yoga as a set of physical practices. Say for heart patients, Dean Ornish was the pioneer, and he got the inspiration for it from his guru, Swami Sachidanand, who also calls his yoga integral yoga. But that doesn't matter. But so Dean Ornish brought in yoga into the treatment of heart disease, not as a set of physical practices, but as a holistic discipline, and went into the spiritual aspects of it. And the same thing the cancer surgeon Bernie Siegel has done, and these are the pioneers. And the same thing Deepak Chopra did. So all these pioneers in mind-body medicine, and they all brought in the spiritual approach, because without bringing that approach, you really cannot have that peace of mind. And as the mother has said, that if you are at peace, then you develop the resistance to disease. And not only one develops resistance to disease, if still one does fall ill, the recovery, if one is at peace, is much faster and much more complete.
I have two follow-up questions. One is, I'd still like to hear a couple of examples from your life as a doctor, as a professor, as a teacher, where you witnessed some of these miracles in people. I had one in my life, which was, it's a very simple case, but for 3 to 4 months, I had cough and cold. I didn't want to go for allopathy. I was trying all kinds of kadas and herbal things, but I was sneezing and coughing all the time. I was living in a community, and everybody around me had started getting now a little bit irritated by the fact that I was constantly coughing. And one day I thought, let me give an attempt to homeopathy. And this is a doctor in Auroville at Sante. He's no longer there. I went to him, and he had a 45-minute session with me where he didn't talk about my physical illness at all. He was talking about how are you doing, how is life, how are you feeling, has anything happened in your life? And he was asking me very personal questions. And for 45 minutes, I shared. After that, he opened a notebook and then he was flipping some pages and then he decided, okay, this one. Then he gave me a little dosage, and after that he said, and just one dosage, after that he said that, you're going to now feel dizzy and sleepy, so sleep. And when you wake up, then you let me know. So exactly like that it happened. I felt dizzy and sleepy. I went home, I slept, I woke up, and I was trying to cough. There was no cough coming out. I said, how come this happened? And then I went back to him. I said, what did you do? 3-4 months, I was having, all kinds of herbal waters, all steaming I was doing. It wasn't going away. And I said, can I see what were you seeing in the book? And he showed me the book. The book said that grief, this person is grieving. That's the core thing. And he just gave me something for grieving. It's like he really identified the core of the issue on the inside. And somewhere that really worked like magic. And that's the first time I really saw, it indeed is psychological. Because when I read that one page of a description, to me it felt, yeah, that's exactly what I was going through. And he identified it very correctly, and he did it like that. And even other times in life, I have seen that there comes a juncture when I really feel like wanting to get rid of a disease, and somehow mother sends something to get it out of the system. So if you can share some of those instances where, people in your life you saw, so many of your students, so many of your patients who saw that magic in their lives, that will be great. The other question that I wanted to ask is, Mother mentions that there are 2 aims on the path of spirituality. One is peace, the other is progress. And then she makes a tongue-in-cheek remark saying that most people want peace. Hardly anybody wants progress. And, on one hand, yoga promises this kind of blissful, happiness, stress-free life. On the other hand, because yoga is a process of accelerated evolution, so it brings in your life challenges that usually in your ordinary life you don't go through. So in that sense, it can bring about stress if you were to perceive those problems or challenges in a certain manner. So how do you reconcile this on the path of integral yoga, which is an expectation when one starts walking on the path of yoga? Now you will not have any stress. But what I also seen in my personal life, which is that people come to Aurobindo, they think everything is hunky-dory, that it'll be all peaceful here. But I really believe the kind of challenges that you encounter here, they're of a completely different level and nature than you would do in your ordinary life. So yes, these are the 2 questions. Feel free to start with whichever one that you want to start with.
Let me start the first one first. Through your own example, you saw that how someone who understood the underlying mental distress could help you get rid of the physical symptoms of cough and so on. And probably what contributed the most to it was, firstly, you got a patient listener who heard you out for 45 minutes.
That's true.
And secondly, he gave you something which helped you go to sleep. So in Ayurveda, they say, Nidra Ardha Upachar, sleep is half the treatment. Sleep has a great healing power. So these are the 2 things which probably did it. And I was trying to rake my head about some examples which I saw in my own experience. I would not have too many, you see, because I've basically not been a practicing physician. I'm a physiologist. So I was in a department that mainly was involved in teaching and research, not in patient care. But after I turned to this area of lifestyle diseases and mind-body medicine, I did start coming in contact with patients. And one of the remarkable cases was a lady, about 35-year-old, who came to the ashram when a course on yoga was just about to begin. And she asked me that whenever I'm in a closed space, I get suffocated. Will this course help me? I told her, yes, it will. Because not only I wanted her to join the course, but also because if I say it confidently, that itself will help her recover from that. So she went through the course in which we talked about things in general, apart from the physical practices, who I am, what the purpose of life is, and how these things can be applied for stress management. Then, we offer such persons also an opportunity for individual counseling if they want. And she asked for it. So when she came for this individual counseling, one of the first things I asked her was that you get suffocated in closed spaces. This room is also closed. Are you feeling suffocated? She said no. She had two symptoms. One was the suffocation. Second thing, she said that she had symptoms referable to the stomach, gastritis-like symptoms for which she had been given some treatment, but it would help for some time and then it would come back again. So she said, I'm not feeling suffocated, and I don't feel suffocated when I go to my parents' place. She was a married woman. So that sort of, in a way, gave it away. Then I asked her, then you tell me a little more about your marriage. And she said, sir, if I tell you, I'll start crying. In other words, she was itching to tell, but she just wanted a little permission to tell. So I placed a glass of water in front of her, which was sort of a silent way of saying that you can cry also if you like. And in Hindi, you can relate better if you talk in your own language. हाँ बताओ बेटे मेरे पास all the time in the world. खुल के बताओ जो कुछ है. So she told. And for nearly half an hour, she went on narrating and crying and narrating. And the problems were not really major problems, but the type of subtle issues that these days we have, and they're also justifiable, that if I do everything as is expected, then there's no problem. But I have no independence. I can't do things on my own at all. And if I don't cook, I'm told that you are taking care of the child all the time. You're not cooking. If I cook, then they find faults with my cooking. And then, if they have to look after the child while I'm cooking, they say that it's not our responsibility, it's your responsibility. If I give something to the maid, they say that tum ghar luta dogi. You'll drive us bankrupt. Now, and if I tell my husband anything, then he says he comes late at night. He's out working the whole day. If I tell him, he says, at this age, my parents can't change. You have to adjust. So the matter finishes there.
It's like psychologically
she had nobody to talk to. And she says, whenever there's a quarrel, then the only person who sides with me is my son, who's 3-year-old. Then I have to tell him, don't talk like that to your grandparents. Dadu, dadi se aise baat nahi karte. So she says, they have nobody to... So she was feeling isolated. So this was something, it was very obvious, because the sentence that gave away was that if there's something nice to eat in the house, my mother-in-law seems to be keeping a count. So there were so many apples, now there are so many. As if, she's trying to tell me that you must have eaten. So she says that, which means everything should happen as is expected. It seems I need permission to eat and I need permission to breathe. That was the clinching sentence. Now, here were symptoms referable to breathing and the stomach. And she's saying that it seems I need permission to eat, I need permission to breathe. So this inner feeling that I need permission even to eat and breathe had now transformed into these physical symptoms. So what I told her was that firstly, of course, apart from the fact that this is your opportunity for spiritual growth, all stressful situations are an opportunity and so on, but a few practical tips. And one of the most important tips that I gave her was that there's a gender difference. When you tell your husband that this is what happened during the day, then he thinks that you are presenting a problem to him. And he knows he can't change his parents, so he can't fix the problem. So he feels like a failure. On the other hand, if you tell him that I don't want you to do anything, I just want you to listen to me, because he doesn't realize it. You see, man by nature is more concrete. He thinks that I have to solve this problem which she has presented. He doesn't think that sharing can also be a need, which is a woman's need. That's a gender difference. So tell him that I just want you to listen to me, because after all, whom else can I talk to? I can't talk about it to my parents. Now the result is that now you are the only person to whom I can talk about these things. So just listen to me. That makes me feel better. Once you do that, then instead of feeling like a failure, he feels like a very important person. That in this whole wide world, I'm the only person who can fulfill this need of hers. And you'll find that your relationship will improve, because her marriage was falling apart because of this. So your relationship will improve and you will feel better. And she improved. The symptoms disappeared.
Wow. And they were very physical symptoms as well.
Physical symptoms.
Yes. Wow. Now we can go to the other question about a lot of people have this expectation that once you start walking the spiritual path, there will be no stress, which to a certain extent is also true. But we are not in a yoga where liberation is the ultimate aim of life, where one has to be here and actively embrace challenges. In fact, one of the things that I notice in Chachaji's book is he's time and again talking about problems and challenges. And he says every time there was a new leg of an adventure that he took, for instance, the boarding school in Mother's International School, it meant a whole new challenge, a whole lot of problems, which had a whole new kind of a depth than the kind of problems he had when he was running the business in the ordinary sense. So how do you reconcile these two, and what are these challenges on the path of yoga, and what makes them characteristically different from the ordinary challenges that one faces in ordinary life?
Well, that's a very good question, and I think you picked up a very nice example in Chachaji, the founder of the Sri Aurobindo Ashram Delhi branch and the Mothers International School. If you see, I mean, he was born different. At the age of 18, he responded to Gandhiji's call to jump into the freedom struggle. Unlike many other young people who also heard the same call, but he was one of those very few who actually did it. What it means is that his psychic being, that is this, his divine essence, which does respond to these circumstances and puts in its faint whisper to tell us what is the right thing to do, that was actually very alive. He was keeping it forward, and he let that voice prevail. And that's how he jumped into the freedom struggle. So he was a different type of person right from the beginning. And in such a person whose psychic being, this inner voice, has been brought forward, that person also has strong feelings, the strong vital, but then it does not translate into the types of feelings that an ordinary person has. It translates into vitality and enthusiasm for great things. And when it comes to the mental part of the being, the intellect, when that is illumined by this psychic being, that starts thinking in wider terms, what can I do for others? And with this thinking, which goes beyond one's little self, and this passion and vitality and enthusiasm which comes from the vital, one gets charged. And that's how one is able to overcome all these challenges. Because when you keep the psychic being forward, it is not only, the divine is not only all-knowing, it's also all-powerful. And therefore, when one decides to act on this voice, one also acquires the courage which comes from the all-powerful character of the divine. So that's how that courage comes. And then, you know, as a person progresses on this path, he finds more and more that the outcome of whatever he does is not in his own hands. So we are entitled to choose our action or choose not to act, but we can't determine what the outcome will be. So what the Gita says in the second chapter, that starts becoming more and more real. Karmanya vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. You are entitled to choose your action, but not the outcome. Then, you know, you also start realizing that all the abilities and circumstances that have been given, which are making this work possible, And the fact that I'm getting these ideas for doing this work is also coming from elsewhere. So therefore, I only feel that I'm the doer, but actually I'm not even the doer. So the teaching in the Gita, which comes later, that you are not the doer, you are only a nimitta matra. It's only someone who has been bewildered by his ego, ahankara vimudha atma, who thinks that I am the doer. So you are not the doer. So when you start feeling that, then it further detaches you from the action as well as the outcome, which means you are acting, but you're not attached to the action and you're not attached to the outcome. And the result is that all that passion is there, but you're not attached to the outcome. You're not attached to the speed with which the work is getting accomplished. You are not even attached to the success. And one is not assessing the impact of the work done. Now, those things which are mental qualities, all those things disappear. One is just happy to do what one is expected to do and expected by a higher source. So that's how one can face these challenges with great courage. The strength comes from within, from that psychic strength, because the psychic is also all-powerful. So the mother said, that the psychic being not only has the function of giving us guidance, it also helps us self-exceed. It makes accessible to us knowledge which is not normally accessible. So it's because of this knowledge which is not normally accessible that we get all those bright ideas about what can be done, what is needed to be done in this world. And it is because of this possibility of self-exceeding that one is able to do that and do it with courage and confidence without worrying about the speed, success, or the impact. The way, there's a modern tendency to evaluate everything. So that's why I'm repeating it. That actually is not the spiritual way of doing things. Just that passion is what is important. That passion comes from the vital when it is transformed. That refined, purified, transformed vital is very passionate. It's sometimes felt that you become very calm and quiet in spirituality, but it does not. That doesn't mean that passion for the right things is not there. As Sri Aurobindo says, that the psychic flame can be as warm or warmer than the ordinary mental vital flame. The only difference is that instead of being a red flame, it's a white flame. So the white flame is no less hot, it's no less powerful. So that passion is there. The person is charged with that passion, he has the courage, and then he's able to look at everything in a different light. So when there are problems, or if there are failures, apparent failures, the person is able to look at them in a different light. So yoga equips us not to, yoga doesn't make us, or spirituality does not make us immune to problems. What it makes us do is provide the courage to face them and also to look at them differently, look at them as opportunities for spiritual growth, and and also it helps us accept the way things are happening in a spirit of surrender. So all these things put together help us stay free of stress, be in peace, in spite of going through all these struggles and problems and hurdles. So it's not that they disappear, but they don't affect us anymore. As Viktor Frankl also discovered, that is one freedom which nobody can take away from us.
Wow.
The freedom not to be miserable.
Very, very beautifully put. And I really loved how you illustrated this particular answer, because when we imagine stress-free, we imagine an individual sitting and meditating. But stress-free can very well be in midst of life when a lot of things are going on. But one can be stress-free and yet, have that refined passion coming from the vital. That brings me, there may be some viewers who may not understand what is the vital, what is the psychic, mind and body a little easier to understand. But this is a fundamental frame of human psychology that we use in Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. If you can very briefly describe what is the psychic, what is the vital, mind and body, but primarily the vital and the psychic.
Yes, that basically we are talking about who I am. That is, what constitutes an individual. That we have a body that is obvious. That we have a mind that is also something which we can easily relate to. And within the mind, we have these two aspects, feeling and thinking. Now, it's the feeling part of the mind that Sri Aurobindo has called the vital. Now, he has called it the vital because vital also means the life force. The life force that animates the matter which constitutes the body. But then why vital also for the feelings? Because while the life force confers on the matter the capacity to live, that is not enough. We also need the urge to live. And the urge to live comes from the feelings. And that's why the two can be put together. Because just imagine an animal who has all the capacity to live, but doesn't have the urge to live. The animal may just keep lying down. Why does it have to find prey? Why does it have to get up and graze on the grass? Might as well do nothing because it doesn't have the urge to live. So that's why the basic necessities of life, like food and water, they have been linked to the emotions. When an animal doesn't have food, it is not only hungry, it is also miserable. And in anticipation of the pleasure it will get when it finds the food, it looks for food, it makes an effort to get the food. So that's what keeps the animal alive. Same applies also to the other basic instinct, that of sex, because that is required for perpetuation of the species. If the animal doesn't have a partner, it is miserable. When it finds the partner, it is happy. So in anticipation of this pleasure, it looks for a partner. So that's how the survival of the individual and the species is ensured by coupling these basic needs to emotions. But then in human beings, the need for these has not disappeared, as we can understand. In effect, the feelings have acquired yet one more additional function. It is these feelings that translate into all that vitality and enthusiasm which is required for anything great and worthwhile. And therefore, emotions are not redundant, not even for human beings, and in fact, they are vital in every sense of the word. So that's why these strong passions and desires have also been grouped under the vital, along with the life force. So we are the body, we are the mind. Mind has these two aspects, the feelings and the thinking. The feeling part, we can roughly say, has been called the vital. The mental is the intellect, the thinking part, the best developed faculty of which is perhaps, or the most important faculty of which is reasoning, the capacity for logic. So that is the intellect. But then we are not, that is not all. We have some sort of vague awareness, at least, that there is something deeper, something else besides the obvious. And to understand that, one can say, take a simple example. Suppose there's a fireman in front of a burning building. And he's told that in the building there are a few people trapped inside. So he gets an impulse, let me go and rescue them. But then before he does that, he may start thinking that it will be very hot and suffocating inside. And then he may also think that it will be also risky. What will happen to my family if I die? Now, suppose he decides to enter the building in spite of all this. When he comes out, irrespective of the outcome, whether he could save anybody or not, he feels good. I did my best. On the other hand, suppose thinking that it will be hot and suffocating, it will be risky and so on, he doesn't go in. And later on it's discovered that a few people died in the building. He feels bad, he feels guilty. And this sense of uneasiness may become recurrent. It may follow him for years and sometimes maybe to his deathbed. Oh, that day I had an opportunity to save these people, but somehow I lost the courage, I didn't go in. So this uneasiness can become. So we can see that where are these different voices coming from? It will be hot and suffocating, that's the feeling. It will be risky, I may die, that is the intellect. But then they can sort of work together. There is some sort of harmony has been reached. Because it will be hot and suffocating and risky, I need not go. But then there's a dissenting voice which came right in the beginning, that impulse, let me go in. Where did that come from? That came from the psychic being. That is the voice of the soul, which puts into that faint whisper, and tells us what the right thing to do is. And it's a voice that is rather shy and faint, and it is not something that insists. It leaves us free. सुनना है तो सुन लो, नहीं तो अपनी कर लो. So it doesn't insist. But at the same time, it is a very persistent voice. It is not insistent, but it is persistent. Which means that if one does not listen to it, then later on, it keeps reminding us again and again that you did not listen. Not only that, listening or not listening to this voice has consequences. Listening to this voice gave this fireman, in spite of the heat and suffocation, in spite of the risk involved, irrespective of the outcome, it gave this fireman great joy and lasting mental peace. The lasting mental peace is the important part. On the other hand, not listening to this voice gave this fireman a sense of guilt and recurrent uneasiness. So this voice not only gives us the right guidance, it also is coupled with a reward and punishment system. And so this is how we can understand that we are not just the body and the mind, we are also something deeper, which is not there. The soul is not there just to give us the consolation that at least some bit of us will continue to be there even when we are dead and gone. It also has a dynamic aspect. It has a dynamic aspect which participates in day-to-day life. So this dynamic aspect of the soul which participates in day-to-day life and puts in this shy and faint but extremely clear whisper about what the right thing to do is. This is the psychic being.
You mentioned in passing about reward and punishment. I'd like you to illustrate on that a little bit. And the reason for this is I've heard a lot of misunderstandings about what the law of karma means. A lot of times, if a child is born with abnormality, many times I've heard people say, oh, must be your bad karma, poor you. Or if somebody is going through a challenging time, okay, law of karma. And then once I came across this story being told by the mother where she says that some souls choose to be in poverty because that poverty is a greater context for progress than being born with a silver spoon in one's mouth. So that gave me a different perspective because Sri Aurobindo's yoga is the yoga of evolution. So whether it helps in evolution or not, that is more critical than the difficulty or the challenge. So what is this reward and punishment that you spoke about in the context of psychic being and its evolution?
This realization that this inner monitor or this inner judge also is coupled to a reward and punishment system is particularly important in education. In integral education, this forms one of the important things because if the child realizes that for doing wrong things, there's a punishment which comes from within, which nobody can escape, the child grows up with something very valuable. Because in fact, much of crime thrives exactly on this mentality that if I'll not be found out, I can't be punished and therefore I can do whatever I want. Because evil is tempting for the child, evil is tempting also for adults. But then the types of evils are different. But if the child understands that I may not be punished by the teacher or the parent if nobody watches me, there's a punishment which comes from within which nobody can escape. So in integral education it becomes a very important thing. But all the same, it's also true that when we come to karma, it is not that the divine is acting like a super judge who is just distributing rewards and punishments for what we do. This reward and punishment is a simplistic way which a child can become conscious of, and that can go a long way in preventing crime in the society. Because the fact is that the amount of crime that is committed is much more than the crime that is detected. And the crime that is punished is only a small fraction of the crime that is detected. And this happens because the criminal thinks that if I can't be found out, nothing will happen. I can't be punished. But he forgets it. There's a punishment which comes from within, which nobody can escape.
Right.
So that part is important. But all the same,
and that punishment is a fall in one's own consciousness.
A broader, yes, exactly. So that's what's coming to that. The broader way of looking at reward and punishment is that it may not be so obvious. Everything that we do either takes us a few steps forward or a few steps backwards in terms of our consciousness. So either we grow in consciousness or we fall in consciousness as a result of what we do. That is the consequence, which means that if we grow in consciousness, we have taken a few steps towards the goal of life. Falling in consciousness, going a few steps backward. And that is the reward and punishment part. And about how we are born in poverty, born with disability, and so on. Those are rather complex things, but the fact is that we require different types of conditions for spiritual growth, and we may sometimes get the conditions which logic may not explain. For example, if a person has been a good person in this life, but even good people by and large don't complete the spiritual journey in one life, it means the person has to be born again. So if this good person thinks that because of I've completed part of the journey, in the next life I'll be born under more comfortable circumstances, that may not also necessarily be true. As the mother said, that person in fact may be born under great poverty, because the types of conditions that poverty provides are not available to a rich person, and vice versa. So both get different types of conditions for spiritual growth, and probably all types of experiences are required. And that is why being born in poverty is not necessarily a punishment. It is just that this experience was also required for further spiritual growth for this particular individual. And give you one beautiful example, which is from that novel, The City of Joy. A poor family has just moved out of Bihar. They're gone to Calcutta so that the man can get job as a rickshaw puller. So naturally, looking for house on rent is out of the question. They start looking for some place to sleep on a pavement. Every pavement that they go to, they find that there are lots of people there, and they all say, no, this pavement is already full, we have no space. At one of those pavements, somebody tells his friends, well, let's move aside a little, move a little this side, move a little that side, create space for them. Because if we don't do that, how will they settle? We also settled in the same way. Now, so many got the opportunity, but one person made the use of this opportunity to grow spiritually through this. He offered space to these people who were looking for a place. So this poor man had a type of opportunity which is not available to a rich person. And just come to think of it, how many rich people would think of this as an opportunity? Suppose they have one extra room in the house and somebody comes and says that I have no place to sleep, will you give me this room? How many people would be willing to do that? So what this person did was remarkable. And this type of an opportunity can be available only to a poor person.
Okay, I have two questions coming to me. More from your role as a physician, as a doctor. One is, these days people are beginning to acknowledge something called nazar. There's also been a lot of talk on what is black magic, what is not black magic. One is also beginning to detect that some of the things that enter inside of you, whether it is psychologically or sometimes physically, they're not yours. They're a part of an environment to which you went, and you ended up, it's like, you go to a certain environment and you come back angry, and you don't know. Nothing wrong really happened, but you are certainly, suddenly feeling angry. And then lately, I also had an experience where I felt affected, and I wasn't understanding that, where is this coming from? And later on, I found out that somebody was really concentrating with a certain intention. For a lay person, how does one sort of understand this? And I know the greatest protection is the mother's force. That sincerity is your greatest protection. That is your greatest no amount of, that's at least what I feel, that no amount of this or that technique to protect oneself. It is really to be in one's sincerity, to be in one's authenticity, to be naked in front of the mother, to say that, mother, I have these limitations, and this is where, I want to truly progress. In your experience as a health practitioner, have you come across cases of this nature? Any learnings from this experience that you'd like to share?
Look at it from a broad angle. When you say nazar or the evil eye, can it really work? Is it something which can actually happen? Yes, in a way it can happen, and the broad way to look at it would be, can one person's mind affect another person's body? That's what. Now, it can work both ways, positively and negatively. And in medicine, now people have started believing that it can work positively as well. And if it can work positively, it can also work negatively. And one of the explanations for it can be given on the basis of the spiritual worldview. Because the mind and the body are essentially two different manifestations of the same supreme reality, the divine. So, my mind and body are the manifestations of the divine. Your mind and body are also the manifestations of the divine. And the air gap that is separating us is also a manifestation of the divine. Matter is also divine. So, in fact, there's no breach of continuity. The breach of continuity is, in a way, partial or not the fundamental reality. The fundamental reality, the continuity is a more fundamental reality than the breach in continuity. So the boundaries of each individual defined by the body are only a partial boundary. And as we know that in fact the other layers besides the physical body, the subtle body, they extend outside the physical body as well. So there's a continuum from the physical body to those other subtler layers of the individual to the matter that separates us. So in fact, there's a continuity. So if there's a continuity, it's easy to understand that one mode of consciousness, that is my mind, can affect another mode of consciousness, that is your body, because of that continuity. Now, that is what explains why some doctors are more effective than others. Because the healing intention of the doctor, the sincere intention of the doctor that the patient should get well, can actually facilitate recovery. As we commonly say, this doctor ke haath mein shafa hai. Anyone who goes to him gets all right. Now, there is something to it, and that depends upon this. So this is the positive way. But then just as it can work positively, it's easy to understand that the same thing can work also negatively. But then when it affects negatively, what can one do about it? As the mother says, these so-called hostile forces, they will not be able to affect us unless we let them in. So at least some chink has to be there in our armor, which means by developing a spiritual armor, which comes from, as you said, seeking protection of the mother, unless there is that chink, these forces will not be able to affect us.
Okay, now I'll come to a little lighter topic. On Instagram, one of the most searched words is actually health. So that gives us an indicator that actually people are now becoming very interested in health, nutrition, lifestyle. On the other hand, you have a growing culture of ordering from outside. Zomato, Swiggy, they are, on the top in stock market. So that is also an increasing culture of eating outside, and usually eating outside is not so healthy. It's primarily junk food. And then you have certain equipments, technologies, which are also taking shape. The smart watch, the smart ring, supplements, cold plunges. And then you have the deep and the profound science of lifestyle coming from yoga. And then also there are now shortcuts like, GLP-1 is very easily available in the market. Things that earlier used to be, some celebrities, they do it. Even things like surgeries that used to be, a completely different kind of people used to do, but it is becoming more commonplace, more accessible. And of course, from whatever I've understood, the path of lifestyle is a relatively difficult one out of the options that are available. But definitely that is the path which has benefits which are not just about looking good. There's benefits are much deeper than that. And yet some of these methods that are emerging can perhaps be tools that one embraces. It doesn't have to be, to throw the baby with the bathwater. Like smartwatches or some of these things I feel can be embraced. Even at some point in time, Mother has talked about that food will be reduced to simple things that you can eat, which sounds similar to supplements. I don't know if that is what Mother meant, but it sounds, certainly she said, like a lot of nutrition and a little bit of this thing. So how do you reconcile on one hand these shortcuts, then on the other hand, these new technologies and new innovations, and then with the profound and deep knowledge of lifestyle and nutrition that comes from yoga?
So that's a rather complex question and can be broken down into so many questions. But if I were to sort of try and achieve some sort of a synthesis, what it is reflecting is that there are two sort of major waves which have given rise to this type of a complex situation. One is a great degree of individualization, and each individual feeling entitled with some encouragement from well-informed and well-educated sources, that thinking of myself, taking good care of myself is not a sin. Which means that paying more and more attention to myself or self-love is being glorified. Unless I love myself, I can't love anybody else, and so on and so forth. Of course, that can be debated, what that self means here. But all the same, that is one. That is attention to oneself as an individual is being glorified. A new type of narcissism is coming up. The second thing is commercialization. The moment there is a certain type of wave, there is quickly a lot of people who try and see how we can utilize this new need which people have developed, how we can monetize it, how we can provide the type of products which will cater to this new need. So people have now started becoming more conscious that it is okay to take good care of myself. It's not a sin. So from going from that extreme where many people, particularly women, thought that they were basically here in the world to please others and do something for others, we've gone to the other extreme that I can take good care of myself and that is enough. And I can be myself without bothering about what others are thinking about me. So this type of, which means I can take good care of myself in every way, including my health. So this commercialization is now trying to present everything in a way that will help some people make money from this type of approach. Now, what we are forgetting is that if we look at the ancient yogic wisdom, it did not really give rise to bad health. It's not that it was, but it did it without doing all these things. And although, times have changed a lot, there are certain things which have not changed. Our body and mind have not fundamentally changed. We still have a rather ancient body and mind in a very modern world. And there has not been enough time for adaptation to the new circumstances. And the result, there is a disharmony, there's a mismatch. And that is why we are likely to get various types of illnesses. And the idea is that we sort of, if one were to put it in sort of the simplest way, which may be acceptable to everyone, moderation. Be moderate about everything. The aim is moderation instead of going to any extreme. All extremes will eventually lead us to trouble. And also, there's also a temptation to look for shortcuts. There are no shortcuts, neither to good health nor to self-realization. Because meditation is being looked upon both as a shortcut to stress reduction and as a shortcut to self-realization. It can accomplish neither. Meditation by itself. So there are no, or GLP-1. Now these are all shortcuts. There's a chemical shortcut. So there are no, and there are same way chemical shortcuts to spiritual experiences also. People have tried drugs. But the fact is there are no shortcuts, and moderation is the key.
Okay, now with that, I'm going to be sharing some of the modern day problems which have become rather very common. And I'd like you to share from a profound yogic perspective what could be the solution to these. The internet is full of solutions for these problems, and modern psychology is trying its best to hold space. There are habit building apps. There are now therapies also being accepted more. But still these problems fundamentally remain. And I feel that they are a mirror to something much deeper. So it's not just about trying to fix this problem. I feel something more deeply is in imbalance, in disharmony, which is coming out in these formats. And many times we are trying to solve these in isolation. So one of the things that many people are now beginning to talk about, sometimes make jokes about also, is constant overthinking. So if I am somebody, I find myself in constant overthinking, what can I do? Where can I start? Second would be anxiety. I'm saying it together because the two are they go hand in hand. They are a pair, couple. And the third would be social media addiction. So constant overthinking, anxiety, social media addiction. And fourth probably is loneliness. So these four problems that everybody is talking about, loneliness and depression, constant overthinking, anxiety, and social media addiction. How can yogic wisdom support with people who are facing these serious challenges?
Let me try and attempt at least part of the answer to these questions. Firstly, I'm in overthinking. One area in which people think a lot, because spirituality is the in thing today, is that I want perfect clarity in this area. I want perfect clarity, total clarity. And that sometimes becomes an excuse for not doing anything. Unless I'm completely clear, how can I do anything? So just talking about it, thinking about it, discussing it becomes an sort of a substitute for actually doing something about it. What we forget is that absolute clarity will not come from mental excursions. We are talking about a subject for which the highest truths have come to the rishis, the seers, from a level higher than the mental. So to some extent, we can understand at the mental level. If we accept those truths which the rishis have seen, we can rationalize them. Or sometimes we can arrive at the same truths through some sort of a complex rational analysis, but which will never be foolproof. That we can do. But to expect total clarity through mental exercise is impossible. Another type of thing that leads to overthinking is anxiety. Anxiety is essentially about the future. So if one starts thinking everything that could go wrong, there'll be no end to it. No matter how secure we are, we'll still be able to think of 100 things which can still go wrong. Which means that that absolute certainty which we are looking for, again, is not possible at the mental level, and we have to let go. Let go and trust that higher power to take care of us. So without that, we'll not be able to get rid of that anxiety, which means that we have to place our trust in that higher power for revealing to us those highest truths when we are ready for it, and for taking care of us. And no matter how we are taken care of, we can be prepared to accept everything as coming from the divine with a purpose. So then we are prepared for the future. Then there's no anxiety. That I'm prepared for no matter what happens. Where all these things can go wrong, but so what? If they do go wrong, of course, all the things that we can imagine can go wrong, most probably will not. That also we know statistically speaking. But if some of these do actually materialize, so what? That will also be a gift from the divine, because it will be there to help me in my spiritual growth. So then the matter ends there. Then the anxiety is gone, which means that neither perfect clarity nor perfect guarantee that nothing will go wrong can come at the mental level. So overthinking does not help, and overthinking should not therefore become an excuse for not actually doing anything. It is not a substitute for it, and it should not wait. Then what is it that I have to do? Instead of saying that I want to know, I want to be sure, we just substitute it by saying that I want to love. And that translates, I want to give. Which means that in a way we are forgetting ourselves. Because wanting perfect clarity, wanting a guarantee that nothing will go wrong, this is for myself. This is what I want. It's personal, it's self-interest. Once I say that I want to love, it has to be at least one more person, which means I'm extending beyond myself. And then this love has to find an expression. It's not only, it means I have to give. Once I get busy giving, I'll forget that I want perfect clarity. So we have to turn to something. And essentially that is what life is about. The purpose of life is fulfilled by seeing what is it that I can give and to whom I can give it. So we have to find that perfect complementary situation, or a reasonably complementary situation rather, where there is somebody available who needs what I can give. Once that complementary situation is there, then the purpose of life is fulfilled.
Wow, how simply you put it.
So that's what it is. And some people are lucky to have that situation, like teachers and doctors and nurses. They always have an endless stream of students and patients available who need exactly what this person can give. So that is what can help with this overthinking. And
Would you like to share on loneliness, depression, and social media addiction also?
yes, what the social media addiction is, because it's giving us a short-term fleeting pleasure. That is not something new. Having a good meal also gives us a short-term fleeting pleasure. Going for shopping and buying something also gives us that short-term fleeting pleasure. So they are not new. And every time that happens, we feel happy for a while, and then it is gone. But then if it happens occasionally, that is fine. But now what is happening is this is happening regularly. And of course, the counterpart of it is in the brain is release of dopamine. So there's a dopamine spike every time such a thing happens, and it falls, which means that this thrill, this short-term pleasure is gone. But then the person now finds it very easy to repeat it. And therefore, we can get these repeated dopamine spikes. And if it's so easy to get more and more of these spikes, one gets addicted to them. That is what essentially social media addiction is. Whether it is looking at the phone again and again, whether it is trying to see whether if I sent a message, how quickly somebody has replied, has somebody liked it, how many people liked what I posted on a group, and so on and so forth. So, which means that we are constantly looking for some sort of a dopamine spike from one of these activities. And if it doesn't happen as fast to the extent that we expected, we get more and more anxious. So that is the type of anxiety that it is building up. And the corresponding treatment that is being offered is go on a fast, media fast for a week. And then fill it up with what? Fill it up with things which are more relaxing, like say meditation. But then that is only a temporary solution. The person is back to square one when he goes. So repeat another retreat, 1 week retreat. So which means that instead of having a occasional fast and constant feasting, why not sort of learn that moderation is the key? This occasional fasting, repeated fasting, and filling the gap which is our normal life with feasting on these things. And this is what actually happens to some extent also with nutrition. That's how we put on weight. That instead of having an occasional fast, we are having an occasional fast and constant feasting, and that is same thing is happening with social media also. But with social media, it doesn't sort of create the same type of obvious disorder like, say, growing fat. In case of drugs of addiction, it led to a clear-cut addiction to a chemical. This appears much more innocuous, but at the same time, it is essentially the same thing. And the brain has its counterparts. Dopamine in case of the short-term pleasures. When we meditate and are more relaxed, then endorphins. And when we feel connection with somebody, bonding, oxytocin. So we have corresponding chemicals. And when the society is becoming more and more individualistic, the result is that we don't have real relationships and real connections, so the connection is virtual. And that is leading to this anxiety. And to treat it, we keep away from it for a week. To release endorphins, we meditate during the retreat. And to release oxytocin, hugs are on sale. Look up Google and you find hugs on sale available.
If one has to start practicing moderation in the way you're saying, and if this is a very sincere seeker who has found oneself in this trap of going to social media and kind of using that as a replacement for relationships, one mentally understands moderation. One has reached the video this far, that means the person is, really resonating. How can that seeker bring in moderation in one's daily life? What are some small steps that a seeker can take to bring in moderation, whether it comes to eating or social media or any of these aspects of life?
One is to trust sort of time-tested wisdom. Because say when it comes to diet, every society has over generations got accustomed to a certain type of diet, and by trial and error, they have by and large learned what is really good for them, what keeps them healthy. And so that is one. Then, we have time-tested wisdom available in case of nutrition, also in Ayurveda. So not to mistrust that. And quite a bit of it finds a reflection in our culinary practices and our everyday sort of practices which come instinctively to us. When it comes to relationships, again, essentially the essence of it is giving, which means that willingness to give, thinking beyond oneself. That is what relationships are about. Relationships break down primarily because of unwillingness to give. There's a beautiful book, and it's in our own interest. There's a beautiful book by Stephen Post, Why Good Things Happen to Good People. And he has sort of tried to make it a scientific sort of a book based on scientific data, which actually it is. And it's interesting that this type of subjects which were considered beyond research have actually been researched in the last few decades. So what he brings out in this book is that there are at least 10 ways of giving. One can give an object, one can give time, one can give knowledge, one can give in so many ways. That is 10 ways of giving. And nobody can give in all the 10 ways, but there are always a few ways in which one can give. And some people are by nature habitually givers. They give in 2 or 3 of these ways. Habitually, it comes very easy to them. And what research has found is that those to whom this giving and this tendency to give in one of these 10 ways can also be quantified. There's a questionnaire. You can answer that and get a score for how high am I on this particular mode of giving. So those who are high on a few modes of giving are the ones who also end up living more healthy lives and live longer. So it's in our own interest. And of course, understood they are also happier.
Okay, a little bit on loneliness and depression also because a whole lot of individuals today are living alone, far away from families because of career-oriented needs. And a whole lot of people are also deciding not to get married. So there was a certain social context that got created because of a family ecosystem. For many people, that is breaking. They are living alone. And even sometimes I've seen people are living in families, but whether it's joint families or nuclear families, emotions are not being talked about. Either, it comes out in an unhealthy manner or it remains never addressed. And then at the end of the day, one ends up feeling that, even though I have people around me, I'm quite lonely within because I couldn't really share the feelings that I've been feeling with anybody. And actually, that many times is taken out in the form of social media and particularly doom scrolling, which happens at night, and that leads to insomnia. And on the other hand, Mother talks about how loneliness is, when you feel alone, that's the best time to turn to the divine. Otherwise, every time you feel, oh, I have a good husband, I have good children, okay, good, that is satisfying me. This is the time that, it really pushes you to turn towards the divine. But one is turning towards the divine, and the second is finding oneself in a lonely situation. And there may be certain steps to it on the path. So people who are finding themselves struggling with loneliness or struggling with depression, where can they get started? What do you have to share about that?
Well, as you said, the mother said turn to the divine, that's an opportunity. But then that is a graded process. It may not come immediately to many people. So one of the simple solutions would be to realize that it's not that we are alone, we have plenty of people around us. But then within that, to be able to forge relationships, which means the relationship does not necessarily have to be a biological relationship or a relationship based on certain clear-cut criteria. The relationship can be just because we happen to have some likes and dislikes which are in common, or we find a lot that we can share with each other. And that type of informal social support systems build up in spiritual organizations like, say, the ashrams, where there are some regular activities. The same set of people keep coming week after week for that activity. Then they start talking to each other, and they find that because it's a self-selected population, they have voluntarily chosen to come to that place. There's enough in common between them, at least, so for them to be able to talk to each other and share joys and sorrows. So that is one. The other thing is that which can do is that one may not have a human company available, but can have a pet. Pets can be very useful, and they can provide sort of the unconditional love, and can, in fact, teach us a lot about what love is about. Having animals. If taking care of an animal is difficult for somebody, then one can have a plant. Plants also respond to the love and attention that they get, and one can develop a relationship with them. One can talk to the plant, treat the plant as a friend or a child. And so these are some of the ways in which one can overcome a sense of loneliness at home. And one of the things which sort of helps us establish this type of thing is the basic knowledge that, or basic sort of acceptance that we are all manifestations of the divine. So no matter in which group or crowd you are, instead of feeling that you are lonely in the crowd, at least look upon each person in the crowd as being related to you in some way, because we are all manifestations of the divine. So imagine a big sort of a sun sending its rays down, and each individual is just one of those rays, like you. So that puts us in a proper perspective, or visualize a vast ocean in which we are all little drops. So that sort of minimizes our own exclusivity and helps us feel something in common with all those who are around us.
We'll, with that, come to my last question. We began with your journey, and then from there, we explored several questions, several modern day problems, several challenges that young people are facing. But now I'd like to tie it back to your journey. One of the reasons early on when I came to Sri Aurobindo and the Mata was reading this line, and I'm not quoting it verbatim, but find that knowing which you know it all. And finding that which felt to me was the solution to all problems. And that is the quest that fascinated me. So we talked about a gamut of problems, from loneliness to getting affected by nazar, evil eye, to overthinking. And then I think towards the end, you hinted that finding that is the solution to all the problems instead of, solving them in sort of isolation. I'd like you to sort of go back to your journey since 1992 when you came to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Some one or two instances of Mother's grace. I'm sure this is a lived, constant experience. So it's not like, how in the beginning it feels like, oh, this happened, this is Mother's grace. But eventually you realize everything is Mother's grace. Even the challenges that were coming your way was also Mother's grace. So then it's over a period of time, I'm sure it's a constant a communion presence. But one or two stories or one or two instances in the last many years of Mother's grace, of walking on this journey, which were certain wow moments, or certain aha moments, or something that really itched in your deeper memory, or somewhere, till the age of 45 also you might have faced several challenges in your life. And I'm sure even after coming to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, because it's a yoga of accelerated evolution, you might have also faced challenges. But how is it different then? And how did her power and her grace help you sort of navigate through that? So some instances of Mother's grace, one or two stories if you'd like to share.
Plenty. But again, can take so much time. Some stories are very spectacular, but maybe long. Some stories are not so spectacular, but very short. So I don't know which one to turn to. And many can be seen in retrospect, even before 1992, which were her grace, but I didn't realize it then. So, yes. Anyway, let me take up one of the spectacular ones and try to put it as briefly as I can. I received from the Mother the gift for writing. And the first book that I wrote was published when I was just 27. And after that, I've been writing a lot. But all the writing, I think, did not give me the same visibility which being on Speaking Tree did. And how did I get onto Speaking Tree? That itself is an interesting story. I had been I got this idea, like a fresh convert after I turned to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, and suddenly things which were not clear earlier started becoming clear. I wanted to share this clarity with other young people because I felt that as a young person, I was confused about so many things. Like, say, I did not understand what is the self with a small s and self with a capital S. how is it that just changing from a small letter to a capital letter can make such a difference from being just one mere individual to the divine itself? So how it can make that difference? So I wanted these things to be clear to a young person. So I thought one can write essays on each of these things, each of these concepts. So gradually the list built up, and the topics built up, and it became around 200 topics. And I started writing essays on those, and wrote an essay on each of these, arranged them alphabetically, and then got these things typed and photocopied, and got them spiral bound, because that's the way we presented it to publishers. Those days, didn't straight away send a soft copy. You provided a spiral bound manuscript. And I got 3 rejection slips for that book. After collecting those 3 rejection slips, I got some more copies made, thinking that I'll give them to some more publishers. Now, these copies were lying on the back seat of the car, freshly collected photocopies, spiral bound. And there was somebody who's a journalist whose mother had passed away. And I could not go for the funeral. So I thought, let me go for the ceremony, which was there after a few days after death. So I went for that ceremony, and this person insisted on coming to see me off. I told him that you have so many things to do, you have so many people to take care of, don't worry. But he still came. He came, and when he saw his eye was caught by these spiral-bound notebooks at the back seat. He said, is this your next book? I told him, well, one day it might become one. So he said, can I have a copy? I gave him one copy. And before that, what happened was these speaking tree people had started coming to the ashram for something. And they gave me some volumes which they had brought out, which were compilations of the articles they had been publishing in the speaking tree column in the newspaper. So this was one part. And I read some of those. Then, this person took it. So it occurred to me that maybe he'll have some contacts with the Times of India. So let me ask him. So I told him that, have you read that spiral bound thing that you picked up? He said, yes. So I told him, how did you like it? So you don't have to say that you liked it just for the sake of saying. With the help of that, can you recommend me to the speaking tree? Because they can publish some pieces and maybe eventually publish all of it as a book. So he said, yes, I know Narayani Ganesh, I'll call her. So he called her and I told her, okay, she says that you could send the notebook to me, that book. So he sent it to her. Now it would have perhaps kept sitting on her desk for months and might have collected dust, got buried under the things. After he sent it to her, within a few days, M.F. Hussain died, the artist. So she wanted quickly to reorganize the speaking tree issues to make it more sort of topical. So she thought she could write something about death. So this was sitting on her desk and she just opened because they were alphabetically arranged. So she saw the essay on death, she liked it. So Narayani Ganesh has picked up this for the next issue of the Speaking Tree magazine. And she wants you 2 lines about you, byline they write. So I gave him those. So within a few weeks of this person taking this, in Speaking Tree appeared this article on death with a big painting of M.F. Hussain by its side, along with a painting by M.F. Hussain. So the result was that, then, he said that now Narayani Ganesh wants to meet you, so I'll go with you. When I went there, she already had a typed letter ready to hand it over to me. She said that we want you to be one of the masters on the Speaking Tree website. So, I'm not a master or anything. So she says, well, at least you're a life coach. Well, I do sometimes try to help people when they're going through difficult times. She said, well, that is the type of people we are looking for. So we'll be happy if you join us. And that's how I became one of the masters on the Speaking Tree website. And then what I started doing was, I thought, now this book is still not published. And they will not publish it in Speaking Tree every week. There are so many authors to cater to. what I can do is, now that I can have blogs on the Speaking Tree website, why not put all these essays one by one essay a week as blogs? Because now the copyright is fully with me. Nobody has published it yet.
Right.
So I started putting these blogs on the website every week under the broad title Spiritual Tonic Every Weekend. So that went on for a long time. And that actually gave me greater visibility than any book that I had written. Now, if I trace back, if M.F. Hussain would not have died at that time, she may not have looked at that so urgently, may have never looked at it. And if that person had not seen those things on the backside of my car, he would not have had that copy with him. And if I had gone for his mother's funeral, I would not have gone on that day. And then if he had not insisted on coming to see me off, he would not have seen those copies. Not only that, how did I know this person, this journalist? He was the son of somebody whom my in-laws knew. And that's how I got introduced to him soon after my marriage. So I would not have known this journalist if I had not got married to the person to whom I got married. So you can go on and on. And you can say that so many little things joined together like a jigsaw puzzle to ultimately take me on to Speaking Tree.
Right. And had you not been on Speaking Tree, then I'm sure so many people who benefited from that work, they would not have
Sure.
come in touch with that. Okay, Bijlani ji, thank you for your vast wisdom today. I was deeply moved, deeply touched with the clarity with which you answered, the authenticity with which you answered all the questions. I personally learned a lot from several things that, you shared about, and I'm sure our viewers did as well. Thank you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Divyanshi. Thank you for having me here on the platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I did. Honestly, I did not even realize that it was such a long conversation. I was so deeply engrossed in it that I really felt that the time just flew by. If you'd like to listen to more such podcasts by people who have lived a life of self-giving, true seekers and sadhaks on the path of integral yoga, then please subscribe to our channel, Purnam Community.